and how core. So really core strength, the deep core, the inner core muscles, like it's called the transverses, the inner and external obliques, they can only really be activated through a very strong breath pattern. So one of the first things that I talk to any client of mine about is how to breathe. A lot of people don't know how to breathe, okay? And in order, again, to really activate those muscles, you've got to learn how to inhale deeply and exhale deeply. So I'm just going to give you an example of what I mean by that. If I'm here on my back, okay, and I'm going to place my thumb here at the base of the rib cage and my pinky at the hip bones. And I'm going to inhale. So as I inhale, you can see that I'm actually expanding through here, okay? As I exhale and blow it out, what I'm feeling is actually a knitting or drawing together of the rib cage and those hip bones. The best way I can explain it is that you're feeling that knitting sensation through the rib cage, almost drawing those hip bones together, and I'm actually gently drawing up and in through the navel, okay? So inhale, exhale, and that's how I'm starting to activate all those deep muscles, okay? Whenever I'm doing any kind of an abdominal exercise, I often see things like this, okay? So people rush through, they're using a lot of momentum, they're actually pulling their neck out of alignment because what they're doing is jerking forward and they're causing stress to the cervical spine, and all they're doing is really working through with momentum. They're not working the muscles. They're using momentum to propel their bodies up and down. So again, the importance of core stability and strength starts with the breath, and it starts with slow, controlled motions. So slowly lifting as you exhale, slowly releasing as you inhale. The weight of the head is in the hands. I'm not pulling and jerking. I'm lifting and lowering. I'm flexing forward the spine. I'm flexing forward at the rib cage as I'm exhaling and releasing. And you'd be amazed at just even doing, if you're doing them properly and breathing properly, you'd be amazed at how hard it is to actually perform the exercise. I guarantee you, somebody that does a slow, controlled flexion here with your feet on the ground with proper breath, I guarantee you 10 reps would be much harder than working through 50 reps of just flipping back and forth, back and forth.
And the range is really small.
It is, exactly, it's exceedingly small, yeah. Exactly. And I'm going to demonstrate later on, if anybody's welcome to come with me upstairs, there's an ab machine that I see so many people, they're using a range of motion that's it's overly large. So again, it has to be kept clean and tight. No momentum, controlled motion, strong breath. So that's how I always start with that type of advocate, that sort of a protocol for engaging. Just as important as the abdominal muscles are, is the erector, the back muscles. You can't, so much emphasis is always been placed on crunches, abdominal strength, constant forward flexion. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a body in balance is a healthy body. So you have to have a strong anterior, but as strong as your anterior is, you have to have that strength in the posterior to balance, like anything else. So there are many exercises, and again, there are many props that you can use to strengthen your back, whether they be resistor balls, bands. You can use your own weight, you can use machines, but what I'll do is just show you a couple fundamental exercises on this mat for the back strengthening. So if I'm lying here on the mat, lying prone, and again, you always want to think energy and length. Okay, so if I'm here lying prone on the mat, I'm basically going to think about energizing through the legs, lengthening, and that's another, I should just kind of sit up for a minute and talk about the lengthening. So again, as I mentioned initially, posture is critical. Posture for any activity you do in life is critical. If you're doing more seated at a machine, you're lifting free weights, you're working with any of the props here. Lengthening through the top of the head, from the crown of the head, right down through your feet is critical. Lifting and releasing, actually lifting, elevating, releasing back, holding yourself upright. It's critical to anything that you do, any form of exercise, whether it be, again, resistance training or cardiovascular training. And what I like to explain or emphasize with my clients is that even if I'm working, if I'm on my line prone and working my back, I'm still thinking about energizing and lengthening through the crown of the head to the base of the feet. So simple exercises to help strengthen and fortify the back, things like a basic extension, opposite arm, lifting slightly. So again, as Chris just mentioned, it's never about the height of the lift. The range, the height of the lift isn't the important part here. It's the lengthening and the release. So I'm not trying, the goal here is not to lift as high as I can, because if I do that, I'm going to put a lot of excess strain on that low back. The goal here is to lengthen and reach. Keeping balance. As you can see, I'm trying to stay balanced as I'm lifting the opposite arm to reaching the opposite arm and the opposite leg to maintain and hold balance. And this is putting little to no stress on that low back. And again, that would be the fundamental exercise. And if I took, if you don't mind, so if I take this ball to make it a little more challenging, you can use props, same thing. You're here, you're coming over that ball, and you're actually adding a little bit of a stability challenge here. You're going to hold. Something like that. Chris, if you want to give it a shot.
So maybe I'll go this way. So you just support with the opposite hand.
Yep, exactly.
And I'm really trying to lengthen.
Yeah, so in other words, his goal, and I would say, Chris, you can probably drop your leg a little bit. So his goal isn't to lift. His goal isn't to lift that leg as high. His goal is to reach through the tips of his fingers, the tips of the toes, to lengthen. But as you can see, it's opposing, so you're really focused on the balance.
It's a different thing, though. When you're really focusing on the lengthening, which is akin to the whole postural thing.
Exactly.
It's such a small, deliberate thing, but it makes you feel the movement.
Right, exactly.
You feel it instead of just doing the movement.
Exactly. So in other words, you're really active. The intensity of the muscle activation is much greater when you're thinking about posture, you're thinking about lengthening, and your range of motion is cleaner and tighter, and there's no momentum. So all these things come into play. Another exercise that demonstrates, it's an exercise that I do a lot of times for clients for a warm-up. And this is something that's a little more advanced because it requires more intrinsic core strength. But this is something that I do with clients to actually warm up, say, their shoulders, it's a working warm-up, shoulders, triceps, and the core. If I start here behind the ball, okay, and I'm not going to follow the ball with my body weight, I'm actually going to use my core strength, my core, to hold myself as I extend my arms, come off, hold, and I'm actually, what I'm doing is as I'm rolling out, I'm thinking about, as I mentioned before, knitting my ribs together, drawing up and in through the navel, holding for 3. So again, the difference between this type of thing. Okay, so I see a lot of, I actually, believe it or not, I see a lot of people doing this. So really all you're getting, you might be getting a tiny bit of tricep in here as as I lengthen my arms, of course, but I'm also, what's happening is I'm using momentum. I'm actually putting a lot of stress. It's not good work, it's stress, like unhealthy stress on the low back, because what's happening is I'm causing an overarch in my back. So in order to avoid that, again, I want to think about every time I'm not doing any exercise, even when I'm walking or driving, I think, okay, Nina, okay, drop it in. Breathe, take a couple deep breaths, drop it in. Think about lengthening through the top of my head, holding myself, keeping my shoulders back and down, and the difference between this and coming forward. And can you see the difference? Holding and releasing. And again, as I mentioned in the very beginning, everybody is coming to me with a different preconditions, a different set of criteria that I have to pay attention to. So if someone came to me with an acute low back injury and that was just coming off, I would never have them do that kind of exercise. I would start lying prone on the mat, something with less risk. But then if I would, obviously, if the person healer I was dealing with somebody that did not have an acute back issue, I would progress them to something like that. So you have to know who your client is, where they've been, and you have to, and every person here should have a certain level of body awareness. You should know enough about your own body, how you feel. If something's not feeling right, and obviously it's not a good exercise for you to undertake. Is there anybody that would like to try a couple of these, or can I get any volunteers? Or
I'll try.
All right.